Hey, welcome back to the Invigorate podcast. I'm Karen Wagner, and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Burton, the baddest chaplain. Chris, thanks for being here, as always.
Thanks for having me. Always a joy to be here with you and really excited to have our conversation today. So let's get it.
Yeah, we have an extra special guest today. Not only has he had an incredibly successful career, he has a passion for developing young leaders. He's a personal mentor of mine, even though I'm not on the young side anymore. But his passion to continuously drive positive change for people with lupus and to promote environmental sustainability, which we'll get into, just never ceases to amaze me. So welcome, Chuck Saia. We're so happy to have you on.
Well, thank you, Karen. I really appreciate the introduction. I'm so grateful to be here with both you and Chris.
Yes.
People I love to spend time with, both of you. And I'm excited for this conversation. And by the way, you are young.
Let her know.
I'll take it.
Chuck, you've as Karen shared earlier, you've done so much and continue to do so much with your career. Like you're a senior partner at Deloitte, you're chairman of the board of Quinnipiac University's board of trustees, and as Karen mentioned, you're passionate about mentorship and leadership. You've also authored 2 books. You got this kid, Words of Advice for Young Leaders, and you got this kid, Leadership Advice for Children. Karen's holding a copy of both of the books right now. These books are also in support of people who have lupus and promote environmental sustainability. So I'm curious if you just walk us through the journey. What inspired you, Chuck, to write these books?
Yeah, so Chris, I really appreciate that question. And I think I've told you in the past, I was at an inflection point in my own career. I was rolling out of a big job that I had at Deloitte, and I was trying to choose where I would have my next impact. And I've always been blessed to have an incredible set of mentors, both within the firm that I chose to work, as well as outside of the firm that I worked. And in addition to that, have been blessed that so much development has been offered to me by Deloitte as I rose to the leadership ranks, a series of different leadership development programs that I took part in. And when I was leaving one role and trying to decide what I would do next, I thought I could write something that would help young leaders because so many people have invested in me. So I chose to do that, and I never thought it was going to see the light of day. I really didn't. And what I did is I made the promise that every book that was sold would go to lupus research and environmental sustainability research, removal of toxins, as you both know, help people with autoimmune diseases.
Right.
And I've learned more and more about that since after writing the book. So I really was, I was at an inflection point, was trying to choose where I could have an impact. I thought I could have an impact with young leaders. And I certainly wanted to have an impact in the area of lupus and the environment. My sister-in-law, Amy, suffers from this debilitating disease. I've watched her suffer, and I thought this would be a creative way to do it. Now, the joke has always been I thought I'd sell one book because I knew my mom would buy the book. So we raised all of $2.90 for research. But what has ensued since then, I know we're going to get into it, has been just an unbelievable rally by philanthropists to help us with our mission.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I actually became aware of the book after Chuck came out with the first one. He pushed it out through LinkedIn. And I remember just being so blown away that this prominent executive was donating all the proceeds to support people with lupus in the environment. One, like lupus is such a niche area, but then to have someone understand the holistic importance of environment on our health and our overall well-being, I just couldn't help but reach out. He had no idea who I was, but I was like, I want to know more about you in your book. And in Chuck fashion, we connected within a couple days. And then we were actually able to start the You Got This Kid Leadership Foundation. And we've made a lot of great impact in the last few years. And I'm excited to talk about the fundraiser today and what we'll go forward with.
Well, I always tell the story this way, Chris. I got linked up with Karin. We had a call within 48 hours. She said, I just read your book. I suffer from lupus. I'm going to help you with your foundation. And I said, what foundation? And she said, the foundation we're going to create together. And it's been an incredible journey. It's how we got to know you, obviously, because some of the stuff that we do with medical school students up at Quinnipiac University, the leadership training that we provide and that you take part in also. And the journey's just been unbelievable for me. I know Karin shares that because we speak so often. We've met people like you, Chris, through this. We met unbelievable people that are willing to donate time and resources to help us have an impact. And it quite frankly, has completely changed my life. Yeah. And the trajectory that I was on to have an impact on this world, it made mission and purpose at the individual level a lot more clearer for me personally. Yeah. So, Karin, I'm so thankful you and I connected because this last 4 years has just been awesome with you.
I'm with you. And I will also say the foundation has really defined that purpose and intention for me as well. And it just has helped. We'll talk about the life lessons in the book, but the foundation and just working with you has just helped me grow tremendously over the last 4 years. And I think it's a testament to you as a leader and how much we've been able to accomplish in the last few years.
Thank you. I'm supposed to say I'm going to leave on a high note now, right, guys? But we just started the interview.
Yeah, so. I know, right?
Something I definitely want to ask you about, Chuck, is, as you're sharing your story and you're talking about starting the foundation and just knowing you have such a generosity of spirit, and like you're someone who is so selfless with your time and with your wisdom. What was it? Was it just the mentorship that you received? Like, what kindled that sense of, it's important to have this sort of generosity. It's important to have this dedication to service. Like, what inculcated that within your own life?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I've had unbelievable mentors during the course of my career, my professional career, and I've watched them give back.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, one of the frustrating things for me as I was coming up the corporate ladder was, I was on that gerbil wheel where you're just running really hard, really fast. And I kept saying that I was going to give back.
Right.
And what giving back for me at that point in time meant was using some financial resources. If someone was doing a walk or raising money for, pick whatever disease that might be out there, I would always try and step up with my financial resources. But that, frankly, that was not philanthropy in the sense of me being fully all in, right? It would be at the bottom of my to-do list to do things with the Lupus Foundation of America, for instance, or to support someone in their walk. And, I would get to it eventually, but it was never at the top of the to-do list. And when I was writing the book, I was at a different stage in my career, right? I told you I was trying to make the choice of where I would have my next impact, and I'm privileged to have the opportunity to make that choice. And I chose that I would do this, that I would have more of an impact. I would take that thing that was at the bottom of the to-do list and put it at the top. And I have to tell you, I wish I did it a lot sooner. I mean, I know it's hard. It's not easy because when you're on that wheel, it's hard to get off it and change your style and change and really understand your mission and purpose. But since I've done it, Chris, it's changed my life. It just has. I mean, every day I come in and I think about the lives that we've impacted and the lives that we're going to impact in the future. Right. It's a phenomenal place to be. But that it really was just a lifestyle change and having the privilege to really make that choice, which I guess I understand the value of having that ability to make a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that. No, that's wonderful to hear.
Chris and I talk a lot about intention and priorities. I've talked a lot about rising the corporate ladder at the expense of my health and just being stressed and just how much that put on you. So being lucky enough to have that opportunity to take a step back and look at what are my values? Where do I need to intentionally spend my time? And I think that's one of the most valuable lessons I've learned throughout this journey.
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you, you're showering me with all these accolades, right? And I'll use the word privilege again. You both give me the privilege and the opportunity to provide you both mentorship, and knowing what you're both going through, right? That you've got that. I don't have that, right? I have the emotional attachment to that. You have the physical attachment to that, and both of you. The similarities are that you're tireless in your efforts to change the world with both of what you're doing. I mean, Karin, the work that you're doing with the foundation and now with Invigorate, and Chris, I've been on the journey with you from Long Island all the way down to Virginia, and the different things that you're doing with, DEI and your unbelievable sermons and all the different ways in which you're touching people's lives. You two are the heroes, frankly. I'm amazed at what you're able to accomplish while you're both dealing with this, right? And there's times in the beginning when I used to meet with both of you, I was like, maybe I'm pushing too hard, right? And you met me at every turn, which is just unreal, really is unreal. And I want people to hear that, because I think part of this podcast is that there are people that are suffering and they're not standing up every day. And I'm not saying it's easy to stand up every day, but that's part of what you're trying to prove here, I think, which is take control of your life, acknowledge you have it, but don't let the disease sort of rule you. You can rule it, and you're both doing that every day. It's amazing. It's amazing.
What you're saying, Chuck, sounds so familiar with what I hear so many lupus warriors say, where they say, like, I have lupus, but lupus doesn't have me.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the counsel and the wisdom that was shared with me early in the diagnosis. You're making me think about this nurse that I had early in the journey who, my body was just so sick of needles at that point. And she was talking to me, she was like, remember, you are strong. Like, no matter how you feel every day, you are strong. I was like, thank you. I was like, I needed to hear that. It's almost like she was my own, like, boxing trainer in the corner. Like, come on, you got him. Go out for another round. And I really appreciated that. So everything you're saying is really at the heart of what we're doing. It is to try to encourage folks to say, like, you're beaten up, but you're not broken. And you keep going, sure.
Yeah. You both read my book. You know that in the book, we didn't maybe explain this to people that are watching this, that the first book on leadership uses animal analogies to compare the corporate jungle to the animal kingdom, right?
Right.
And one of the stories in the book, and then the children's book uses the same characters, basically the same animals, to tell life lessons around, well, leadership lessons, but also, Karin, as you pointed out in the past, life lessons. But there's an armadillo in the book. There's a story of an armadillo, and the story of the armadillo is meant to remind people that leadership and life is a contact sport. And you need to sort of understand that things are going to come at you in life, and you need a thick skin in order to deal with those issues. And I always, if you read the book, I go back to what gives me a thick skin is that I survived being downtown in 9/11. And made it home to my family that day, and got to live another day where many people were not able to. And when people have attacked me and my leadership style or my personal style, I always go back to that place, right? And it's similar to what you, I think, both do, which is, you've been dealt these cards. They're hard cards, but you're able to survive that. And that's why you're able to do the things that you're doing to help other people. Just amazing. Really amazing.
I love the characters, because when I first read the book, you interpret it one way based on your life experiences at that point. But rereading it a few times, the characters just build in depth with how much you actually get out of it. There's just a lot of meaning behind it, even though it's an easy book to read. You can read it in an hour. Chuck purposely made it that way for people with less attention spans, maybe the younger generation. Not to call anyone out or anything.
No,
But
no.
It's exactly right, Karen. And even when I talk about them now, I used to be pretty scripted on conversations like this, and
Yeah.
now they're, all 7 of those animals are a part of me.
Come on.
And each time I talk about them, and I look, I do this at universities. I've done this at major institutions. We do a lot of this in the form of workshop, right? When we do speaking engagements, and the workshops are the most fun because people get to sort of tell you, we call it their leadership footprint. So in the what I just talked to you about with the armadillo and the thick skin, we ask the students or the leaders within these institutions to document what gives them a thick skin. And as I read what comes in, their leadership footprints about what makes them special or what's their authentic self, what's their thick skin, what's their mission, who's on their team, who are their mentors, how do they embrace diversity of thought, and who are the scorpions in their life, which many people want to talk about that.
Right.
You sort of learn from people, and these animals that are a part of me, they're sort of maybe what I originally wrote has actually evolved into some other things because I've learned from so many as they've embraced the teachings of those 7 attributes and those 7 animals. It's been fun.
Chuck, can you think of any instances that you can share that have stood out to you?
Well, there's so many, right?
Yeah.
The corporate world's fun to do it, but it's not as much fun as doing it in higher ed. So the minute you said that to me, I recall, I speak at NC State every year. I do a lot at Quinnipiac, obviously, because I'm the chair there. But the 2 that I recall very quickly, maybe it's 3. Can I do 3? I don't want to violate anybody's privacy, right? But this past year when I did it at NC State, the vulnerability that generation shows in a room full of people where they are really genuine about telling you what makes them special, and then also sharing stories about what gives them thick skin is just amazing. Like family situations, deep, dark family situations that give these young, evolving leaders thick skin, and them being able to apply it just touches my heart.
Yeah.
Our first year, which you both are part of, you're a part of it every year, at the medical school where we do medical school leadership training. The students stand out. Those first years, I love all 3 classes that we've done this, the M1s, the M2s, and then this year's. That's 3 years of training. There's one student in particular, and I don't want to say her name, but she won an award from us, and we met her, and we were like, this is a future, leader of a hospital or something even bigger.
Right.
And then, just what you do when you do that patient panel or really stands out because it teaches the medical school students the patient side, and the emotional side of, and reminds them why they chose to go into the medical field, where they're going to have an impact on individuals' lives. And we tell them right up front, when you made that choice to be a doctor or to go to medical school, whatever avenue you're going to go into, you've immediately made the choice that you're going to be a leader, because you're going to be a leader to that patient.
Oh, yeah.
So there's so many. I can go on and on. I mean, it's just, that's when I tell you that it changed my life. It changed my life because I couldn't tell those stories 4 years ago.
I will say with the medical school students, that work is so important for, 2 reasons. One, the demand for rheumatologists, because autoimmune diseases are increasing and there's less pre-med students going into rheumatology. So there's that avenue. But then also, we've talked about how we've seen a number of different specialists based on how lupus or your autoimmune diseases manifest themselves.
Sure.
So educating those medical students who are going into other fields and other specialties will just help them provide better health care in general. So it's the immediate impact, but I think there's a long-term impact that's just as valuable.
Yeah. And you know this, we've seen people that have come to the university that where we do the medical school training at Quinnipiac, and we've seen people shift to the rheumatology field because they are exposed to it in a very different way. And we don't want everybody to be a rheumatologist. That's not our goal when we go in. But if we can get one or two, it's an added bonus to what we're doing. And some of the grants that we've been able to supply, where people are doing lupus research or autoimmune disease research, we're creating a community of future leaders, and there are just not enough rheumatologists in the world to support the growing demand because of autoimmune diseases on the uptick, which goes back to the environmental toxins, which we haven't even touched on. But the clear linkage between environmental toxins having an impact on autoimmune.
No doubt about it that there's that connection. And I just want you to talk a bit about your connection to the outside world and like outdoor activities and thinking about the ways in which you try to enjoy and enhance your own quality of life by being outside, because this is something that is clearly like a passion for you, and you talk about it in terms of wanting to remove the toxins that really help benefit all of us, but just really giving folks who are listening and watching a slice of the way in which you enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, it's a story of growth, really, Chris.
Yeah,
I'm continuously learning. One of the chapters is a caterpillar going to butterfly, and the purpose of that chapter is about continuous learning. As a leader, that you have to continue to learn new things. Well, here I am at a much older stage of my life than the two of you, as you could tell. When I wrote the book, and this is what I mean by continuously learning, if you read the foreword of the book, or the first mention of me making this donations, all of the proceeds going to lupus and the environment. What I say about the environment is that I'm an avid outdoorsman. I'm an avid fisherman, fly fisherman. Important to me that we have clean water because of that.
Right.
And I love the environment, which I can get into the work-life balance piece of it. But what I learned since writing the book, because of the foundation that Karin and I created, and one of our board members is a PhD in biology, Courtney McGinnis. She trains the students that we train in the medical school about the toxins and the impact they have on people with autoimmune. I didn't know that before. I never made that connection point. I made that connection point when she was teaching the students in front of me, and I said, well, if I knew that, that's what I would have put in the book as the main reason. In terms of work-life balance, I mean, look, everybody's in a different stage in their life, in their career. Having said that, I've always prioritized exercise, and I've prioritized it in, going to the gym. I've always prioritized mental health. I think that's the mental health and the strengthening of your brain muscle is really, really important.
Yeah.
And then the way in which I work. Right now, you see me. I'm at a standing desk. I've always done that. Yeah. Well, as long as I could afford, I've always been at a standing desk because you're burning calories while you're doing that.
Right.
You both know this because sometimes when we have a Zoom call, we say, let's not do the Zoom call. We're walking, right? I'm walking in my neighborhood. You're walking in your neighborhood. I try and opt for the walking call versus the Zoom call. There's different ways that you can add that sort of, balance in your life to take care of your health. And then, I like to say I missed very few of my kids' games.
Great.
I was a CEO. I had to travel a lot. But that was something I really prioritized, and didn't miss plays, and I didn't miss student-teacher conferences. Those are really important moments for you to show up for your family.
Yes.
And I tried my best to always show up for my family. And, there were times that maybe I couldn't, but I made sure my children knew that, mom was giving me the play-by-play while I wasn't there, and called them when they were done. So all important things as it relates to work-life balance.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you talk about that, especially with the image to the mind of like the hamster wheel that you were mentioning earlier. Just thinking about the way in which, especially, I'm thinking about the young people in our audience who may still be in school or early in their careers, who all they're seeing is like whatever their goal is to be, chief executive or leader in their industry, and they're not seeing necessarily how all those pieces, taking care of your mind, taking care of your body, taking care of your family and your community, are all necessary pieces around whatever your idea of success is. Because without those pieces, you're going to get to the top of that mountain and it's going to be lonely and cold. It's not going to be as beautiful as it could be if you had all the supporting pieces around.
Yeah. One of the stories in the book is about an eagle mom, and that eagle mom story is about mentorship. You both know this because I say this. It's the only story that it's not an actual factual story about an animal that you can go Google.
Right.
Because I in my book, well, in an eagle's nest, what normally happens is two eaglets are born. One is born before the other. And as a result, one is stronger than the other, getting fed more, and sibling rivalry ensues. And the bigger eaglet kills off the younger eaglet. And I always say, not in my book. That's not the way it was going to happen. This mom recognized the importance of both chicks being raised and mentored, and knew that they both would someday fly, the skies of Alaska, and she could be proud. And that story is about mentorship. And the reason I bring it up in the context of what you just said is, when you have mentors and you have a diverse group of mentors, people from different walks of life, different stages of life, they can help you see the importance of not just setting a goal that is, I want to be a chief executive, rather setting mission and purpose-based goals. And if you happen to get to the chief executive, that's great. And by the way, if you set the goal of just, I'm going to be a chief executive, you will miss stages along the way of growth that you'll never get to that. You'll just never get to that. We sometimes become so insular in our thinking, right? And that's what mentors try to do for you. It's like, okay, let's broaden the way in which you think about the world, and that will provide more success for you than you going to chase that one individual job.
I will say, for me in our mentorship, anytime there's been a few instances where you will share an idea or thought with me and I'm like, that's nuts, I'm not doing that, like whatever, and then sure enough, like 2 or 3 months later, I was like, oh, I need to go do that thing that Chuck was telling me about. So to your point about broadening your view, we can get so focused on the day-to-day in our routines and just getting by, that having that broader view can really help you pick your head up and have a broader perspective.
Yeah. I missed something in the book. I say this now. I didn't talk about mission and purpose in the book. And I wish I had. I wish I had done it in that caterpillar to butterfly story, because what I say now is that you're more willing to continuously learn if you understand what your mission and purpose is, right? I actually think this generation, like when I go and speak to students at universities, I'm shocked that they know at this stage in their life what they want their mission and purpose to be. I actually just spoke to a young person today, and she is trying to decide whether to go to graduate school or not.
Right.
And she wants to be in the public health arena. She wants to have an impact as it relates to public health. She's like 23, right?
Come on.
When I was 23, I wanted to know how I could afford the car that I was going to drive to impress people. We just didn't think that way.
Right.
People are really hard on this generation coming up. And in some instances, rightfully so. Like, sometimes their responsiveness is not where we need it to be. Their work ethic is not where we need it to be. But where they far exceed at least my generation is in their thoughtfulness on mission, purpose, and where they're going to spend their time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which is also an opportunity for you both who are building businesses and contributing to businesses, is an opportunity for you to change the way people work and make it more mission and purpose based, and take advantage of that new workforce that really looks towards that. But
right, that's so purpose driven.
Yeah,
that's really it.
And I'll say, when you have that purpose, and you mentioned it when you were setting your priorities when you're traveling and making sure you're prioritizing your family first, I think having that purpose can help you make those hard decisions, and how you can structure your life around those priorities. It's not the old days where you need to have a 9-to-5 job in an office cube. Like, there's a lot of flexibility. So for our audience members that are like, hey, I can't do the full-time gig, I'm not doing great right now, there's a lot of options there. One thing Chuck has taught me is to think creatively. It's not a one size fits all. There's different options that can meet you where you're at, wherever you're at in your career and health state.
Yeah.
So
well said.
Indeed.
So let's talk about what the foundation is up to this coming week.
Well, so last year at this time, we had our first gala, right, Karin? And it was an unbelievable success, more than we could ever imagine. I think we had 240 guests, and we did it street fair style, where we had vendors, and it was indoors, but it's sort of, we were looking for a different feel, and we had jazz music, and it was really uplifting and upbeat. We didn't want to saturate the gala, so we decided we would do that every other year. Next year, we've got big plans. It's not going to be a street fair, but it'll be something pretty cool, I think.
Awesome.
So stay tuned on that. This year, we decided to do a walk, but we're doing it during the week of wellness, and we're tying it to environment, getting outside, appreciating our environment for all the things that we just mentioned to each other about, the toxins and the linkage to autoimmune. And we're doing a walk, and so far we're doing great. I mean, we're raising money, and we have interns. We don't have an executive director. We don't have administration. Our foundation is meant to be lean, so that we can use all proceeds to have impact.
Right.
Last year's proceeds, we issued 2 Lupus grants. We issued internships. We've had environmental internships in the past. We've donated books. Our children's book got all the way to Poland, to some refugees in Poland this year. Right. So just different things in different places where we're having impact, so that it's really money that is going to be used, in my opinion, in the right way. We're getting bigger and bigger. Sometimes I think we do need an executive director, and I understand why people have administration when they're doing a foundation. For now, we're giving immersive learning experiences to some students to help us manage the foundation, and thinking about considering ways in which we might be able to put chapters on campuses so that they can run it and get immersive learning, rather than us having a heavy admin burden. But you could be rest assured, for now, that money that comes in is going to be put to good use. In fact, some of the Lupus grants that we did this past year, those students are finalizing those projects, and both of those projects have a continuation to them.
Right.
And what we're going to hope to do is give additional grants to a next set of students, medical school students, that'll take that research and propel it further. So stay tuned on that. But thanks for letting me do that advertisement. I will be walking every day. I was told I don't need to walk every day, that it's only, you could pick one day. So if you're doing it, just walk one day if that's what you choose. But I'm going to do every day, and I'm going to try and pick different locations and share some photos. Not that anyone needs photos of me, but in my different locations. So I'm excited to do it.
It starts on November 4th, this Saturday, and then it'll run through November 12th. I am going to be walking every day because I have a personal goal to get outside every day.
Yes.
in the month of November. It's like, need some fresh air. And that's tough because it's getting cold here in Minnesota. We got
Yeah.
3 inches of snow on Monday.
Snow already.
Yeah,
Right.
not
Right.
normal for us. So it was unexpected.
Yeah, I
But
hear that.
I'll still get outside. I can promise you that.
That's it. Bundled or not, and we'll be out there for sure.
A little easier for me in New Jersey, unless it rains, Karen, but I'll be out every day.
That's
And Chris promised us a photo,
That's right.
maybe of a soccer field, because he'll be with his kids somewhere,
That's it. It's,
doing some sport. Is it soccer or football? I forget.
It's soccer this season.
Right.
Soccer this season, then going into basketball. Then my youngest, we gotta get him in track because he's running. I might have to put him in track this spring.
All right, that sounds good. But yeah, look, it's great to be outside. Great to raise money for a good cause, and we're going to be all doing it. And hopefully, we get enough money that we can continue to have the impact that we're having. I'm certain of it. The money coming in already is pretty surprising to me. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, we're doing fantastic. And I think it's a perfect reason for our Invigorate audience to get in some extra walking, be a little bit more mobile, and just push yourself to do a little bit more. I mean, don't go outside your comfort zone a ton, but, get active and support a good cause.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, there's something to be said about just, even the days where you're not feeling 100%, just trying to get a little something in, because something absolutely is better than nothing. So even if you're like, oh, I can't walk a whole mile, like at least try to like walk around your block or get a good sense of making sure that you're moving your body, because the body emotion is going to stay in motion,
Yeah. And we've talked about how, Chris, you and I are experiencing the physical element of lupus. Chuck, you're on the outside of it, but you've experienced the emotional side of it. I wanted to ask you, what insight or advice would you share with a family who is early on in their autoimmune disease journey?
Yeah, so the blessing in this is that we're tackling this as a family, right? So there is a blessing in that. So I think one piece of advice is that you learn as much as possible about what can be done in the positive, and you do it as a unit. Don't allow the person that's going through this to have to go through it alone. Embrace it as an opportunity to bring the family closer together. My sister-in-law has my wife as her sister, and my wife is the type that dives in and learns every aspect of what can help from a medical standpoint. And having someone side by side, I think Amy would tell you, is just unbelievable. And maybe the last thing I would say is I don't look at it as a burden. Look at it as an opportunity to bring people closer. It makes you feel good that you're able to do that as a unit. It really does. It's frankly what I love about your idea with Invigorate, Karin, is that in one central place you're providing. And I've told you this. You of course gravitate towards the patient, and I've always said to you, okay, but your audience is much bigger than the patient, right? Because it's the family members that don't want to feel like they can't help. And what your platform is doing is it's providing an opportunity for people to learn how they can encourage and help in the right way, right? Saying get up and walk on a day when you really can't get up and walk might seem helpful, but understanding why the person can't do it that day, and maybe it's a mental thing or maybe it's something else, is really important to understand. And I'll just, if I can, just one last second. When Amy was first suffering from this, I gravitated towards the, tough guy stance of, come on, this is mental. Like, you're fainting, you're not able to get out of bed. This is postpartum. This is the things that, people blame. Right. That isn't. And then when we found out what it was, we could start working together towards it. So Yeah, as a unit.
I will say when you're first diagnosed or early on, it's easy to fall into that trap of feeling like a victim and you don't have control. But as we've learned, both through the foundation and what I'm trying to do with Invigorate, is that there is so much more you can do to help yourself. There's not an end all be all cure all by any means, but there is a lot you can do to reduce symptoms and just improve your overall quality of life.
Yeah.
No question. And I love the way you talk about your journey, Chuck, because I do feel ultimately, and folks on the show have heard this before, like the way in which like my wife and my family like saw my journey, and so many lupus warriors have had family members or loved ones or community around them. I've really arrived at the point of believing that it's one thing to experience the disease and the suffering that happens in the body, but it's a unique kind of suffering in watching someone you care about suffer, and you feel limited in your agency to stop the suffering. And I do think that having a space and having resources for those who are the caregivers and who are in the community is important, because there has to be such a deep powerlessness that happens when you're watching someone you love suffer and you can't stop.
Yeah, Chris. And again, I go back to, understanding how you can help and doing it as a unit. I mean, if you think about it, one of the things that you have constantly told both of you over the course of you dealing with this is about your diet, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you're improving your diet, your entire family's improving their diet. It's about exercise. Okay. If you're improving your exercise, your entire family can take part in that exercise.
That's right.
Mental health, understanding the importance of it, understanding the opportunities to strengthen the brain and how you might be able to do that. The entire family can take part in that. And there's a lot of strength to that. I mean, that, you'd hate to say this is a gift because it's not.
Right.
But there is a gift component of bringing a family closer together if the family is powerful enough to rally around each other. So
absolutely.
There's an element to me that, you both, the way you present yourself and what I know you've got going on in the background is so different. And, I know the days that Karin can't connect with me because she is getting treatment, for instance. And I know that later that day, Karin, you're not able to connect with me. I mean, that's just, I'm not going to share the day, but I know the day. And, I'm waiting for like the day or two after, then we reconnect to make sure I know everything is okay. But the reason I bring that up is this is hard, right? When people see the two of you right now and the way in which you're sort of doing this and the way in which you're contributing, it might seem like you have a full handle on this thing. And in some respect you do, but, I encourage both of you that if you haven't done it already on some of these calls, they need to see some of the struggles that you have, because, this is hard.
Yeah.
Right. This is hard.
Yeah,
I felt like I needed to say that because this, we're having this back and forth, and you both are like, doing this unbelievable work. But I also know both of you well enough to know that there are those days that you're not, you just can't. And I think that's an important message for the listeners to understand.
Absolutely. You saying that makes me think about the ways in which I've described lupus warriors as like a beautiful swan on the lake, and it's majestically going around the lake. Well, underneath that water, it's kicking, it's fighting every single movement. It's a fight underneath. So just absolutely to your point, I think so much of it is, it truly is a blessing to be able to like present yourself well. But people can sort of see that end product, or especially in our social media culture, it's easy to just see the highlights of it. But I think to your point, the process is important for people to see, and being able to see the sort of the lowlights and the valleys of your journey are critical as well.
Yeah. Well said. I love the swan analogy.
Oh, no doubt.
Love it.
Chuck, I have to ask you one more question. So you talked about how early on you were concerned about you were pushing us too hard, but we met you at every corner. How, and then your perspective with your sister-in-law, how would you suggest on someone on the outside, how would you suggest like someone dealing with autoimmune disease to communicate with it with either their employers or their loved ones? Because it's like there's the transparency factor, but sometimes it is misunderstood. So there's an education factor. And personally, I always struggle with how much do I share? You know, I'm not hiding anything, but I also don't want to give you my whole rundown summary, but I know it's important that you need to know what's going on. So it's always, I don't know, a tug of war for me.
Yeah, I mean, and you also don't want to feel like a victim or a patient every time you're
Right.
with someone, right? I mean,
Right.
and I felt that from both of you, frankly, in the beginning of our conversations, and it took some time. And, you know, I spend more time with Karin than Chris, but I've spent enough time with Chris that it's sort of, as you were both building your next chapters, you know, there was acknowledgement in those conversations that, you know, there's so much that you can do, and there's other times that you're not going to be able to show up. And I think, you know, if you're talking to an employer, or you're talking to someone, about this, I think you do need to be pretty transparent that this is what lupus means. This is what it means to my life. I'm not gonna let this disease own me, as you both say.
Right.
There may be days that I am just not going to be able to be my best self. And I need you to understand that. And then there's an important message that comes with that, okay? Because we're all in different places in our life and in different circumstances, okay? But there is one thing that is very important, and it's something going back to my book, which is the first story of the first animal is the story of a duck in a Central Park pond. You can read it. It's about your authentic self, about people appreciating you and your true colors. And I often get a lot of challenge when I go in corporate America to tell this part of the story. The last sentence in that chapter says, the duck eventually leaves the Central Park pond that he's been staying at, where he's different than everyone else. And when he leaves, people are wondering why he left. Was it predator? Was it this? Was it that? And what I say is, I hope that he left if he felt like he wasn't being appreciated, that he left to go swim in another pond.
Right.
And that is really important here, that if you have that conversation and you don't feel like the people that you're having that conversation with are going to meet you halfway on that, you need to find another pond.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there are people out there that will work with you on this.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, the one thing I would encourage you to say to that employer is, trust me, we are going to get to a place that it's really going to work well. And you're going to understand me and appreciate me when I'm showing up, and you're going to understand, and I'm going to appreciate you when you give me some leeway and I'm unable to show up. And that takes time. You know, you know, Karin, I think for you and I, you know, in building the foundation, it probably took us a year to get into that, right? Where there were times where like, I'm okay. You don't have to, you know, I'm okay. Like, you know, and I'm like, all right, she's okay. Right. And then there's other times you said to me, I can't meet you this Friday. Right. So anyway.
Absolutely.
Yes. But be transparent. You have to be. Do not hide from this.
Right.
Be transparent. And as a lupus warrior, you know this, you need to be an ambassador for those with lupus. And you need to create awareness. Those are two of the fundamental things of being a lupus warrior. So go create the awareness through transparency, and don't accept you know, too much vulnerability.
Let's do it, right, Chris?
No, those are wise words. I'm here for it. I think that's something that I sometimes think about it in terms of like words my younger self needed to hear, right? And I think about after that first job where I was diagnosed and I left because of my illness. I remember going into my second was a teaching job. I remember going into it so scared for anyone to find out. Like obviously it's like you can't discriminate against someone if like they disclose that to you. But I remember just being so afraid that if, my employer found out that I was sick, that they would just treat me, not even like fire me as much as like treat me with less respect than I deserved. I didn't want to have that sort of like second class relationship in my workplace. And when I eventually did have a flare, I was so beautifully surprised by how that community, including my supervisor, just like rallied around me and supported me the whole journey of it. So to your point, you're right. And if you're not getting treated well, I love that expression. Find another pond, for real.
Yep.
Community is so important. And that's one thing about the You Got This Kid Leadership Foundation that I've been able to really experience is that community outside of your immediate network that is out there that you don't immediately think about, but there's a whole community of us together fighting this and driving awareness about it and trying to make a positive impact.
Yep. For
So
sure.
I want to encourage all of you. The link to the foundation and the fundraising page is all in the show notes. We also have links to the books which are available to purchase on Amazon. And if you want to get involved, please support us. Saturday, November 4th through the 12th, Week of Wellness. #tag us on social. We so appreciate your support. Chuck, thank you for the wonderful conversation today and your time. I know you have a lot going on, but it meant the world that you could be here.
Truly.
Thank you both. Really loved it and love you both. So thank you.
Take care, y'all.